Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Friday to you. Aaron says, I've got Doug on two screens, last 2 minutes of the First Timothy 2:15 video. Well, I don't know if that double the pleasure or double the, uh, whatever. Good to see you all this morning. Got Ron over on Facebook. Daniel, is it Haas? If you happen to be on here today, re-ask your question from yesterday and we will give that some attention. If not, we'll come to that another time. All right, so it is Friday. It's Freeform Friday. It means I get to talk about whatever I want to. And in a little bit, I want to talk about the real world implications of what we have been studying in Revelation and First Corinthians and First and Second Timothy with respect to the optimism that I have and that I want you to have for our lives. Happy days might be here again. I don't know if the again part fits. I don't know if it's, we can commit this good old days fallacy, but happy days are coming, I'm convinced. Not because of what I see, but because of what the scripture says. And then I start looking for it, and sure enough, I see it. So we're going to talk about that. But first, pop quiz. So last week, I can't remember, had the B-2 bombers, had that report come out before we talked? I know things were getting tense with Iran and all of that. Well, I urged you to not trust anyone, to not trust the media or even the social media and the independent media on your favorite social media platform. I urged you not to trust your pundits and even politicians. There's the fog of war, the deception that is part of warfare. And then there's the deception that is just part and parcel of so many media. And I reminded you that no one has the information. No one knows what's going on. You're going to be hearing all kinds of things, assumptions, people thinking they can read minds, thinking they know what is happening and not happening. So my question is, did you fall for it and get all worked up? There were so many people, even on the right, maybe especially on the right, that were convinced that Trump was taking us into war, that World War III was right on the cusp. Did you see the meme? World War III voted the worst sequel since Crystal Skull, the Indiana Jones 4. A great meme. Anyway, did you get sucked into thinking that people knew what they were talking about? And then, of course, just yesterday, all the stuff about the whether the facilities, the nuclear facilities of Iran were truly destroyed and all that. It was a great test case, and I don't in any way mean to downplay the seriousness of the warfare that was going on and how tense things were, but it was just a great test case for us as Christians to trust the Lord and to use wisdom and caution to not get riled up and assume that we know things that we don't know or can't know. And again, I remind you, whoever your favorite independent journalists are and your favorite social media gurus are, if they're driven to get clicks and get you back because that's how they make their money, that's their income, then you've always got to view them with some skepticism, right? So anyway, how'd you do? Steven says, didn't get worked up. Excellent. Kathy says, I didn't listen to any of it, so I fell for nothing. Very good. That may be the wisest. He may be the wisest person on here. Aaron says, I was very apprehensive, but have learned that nothing is ever as simple as first seems with Trump. Well, that isn't that for sure. Indeed. Yeah. So I would just urge you to continue to work with caution, move with caution, listen with caution, or take Kathy's approach and just tune it all out. No, I mean, at least for me, I like to keep pace. Well, I get asked all the time online and in person, what I think about this and that. And these things do matter, but I just don't trust what I hear. And that doesn't mean I question everybody's motives. But it's amazing how quickly some event happens and then we're just flooded with people who have the correct interpretation of the matter immediately, and that can't be. Megan says, I remain skeptical of everyone's opinions. Very good. Well, I think that's the right posture, so I would encourage you. So good. Y'all passed the test, it sounds like. All right. Yeah, so I think Aaron made a good comment. It's never as simple as it first seems with Trump. I will tell you, Trump was consistent with his MO, it seems to me. If you remember back to his first term, he took out, is it Soleimani? I forget how to say his name. With the Moab, the mother of all bombs, and did a couple things. One, it did serious damage to ISIS, but also made a statement to everyone, the whole world, he's willing to do big things, right? He's willing to drop the big bomb. He did the same thing here, it seems to me. It sure seems like he was consistent with his viewpoint that he has held for decades, that Iran must not have nuclear capability as far as bombing goes, as far as nuclear weapons. And he hit them hard. Sounds devastating. And again, being skeptical, and yet from several standpoints, it seems like several different people are acknowledging that it was an obliteration. We'll see over time. That could be wrong, but he certainly dropped heavy payload in areas that didn't take life, but did the damage, and then we're done. Right? He has no interest in taking us into any kind of war, ongoing occupation or regime change or any of that, which is consistent with what he has said all along. And again, it does two things. Assuming that what we're hearing is true, it sets Iran back, and consequently, Hezbollah and the other terrorists that Iran supports, sets them all back significantly, really weakens them, I think. We'll see. And sends a message to the whole world, he's willing to do big things. So how about we don't get into a battle? Let's talk, and let's make economic deals and peace deals and so on. I think it's a great strategy, and a strategy for the time, and seems to have worked. Now we'll see. Time will tell, and maybe we're wrong. Ron says, yeah, Daniel 2 is the stone that was cut out of the mountain without hands that grew to be. Yeah, we're gonna get there in a minute. Are you saying that, Ron, because of the happy days? Yeah, that's kind of where I'm going here. Anyway, speaking of Trump, there is another battle raging here in the U.S. Trump versus Massie. Aaron says, one of the big concerns was Trump's being dragged into this by Netanyahu. Seems like Trump's actually controlling that relationship more than people give him credit for, though. That's how I read it. I don't think anybody controls Trump. I think what he has proven again and again is he's not bound to anyone. He's not controlled by anyone. He's going to do what he thinks is best. Yeah, so I'm right with you. I don't see any indication that he is concerned. He is about making what he thinks is the best decision right now. So he's willing to team up with whomever will help him reach his goal, such as Lindsey Graham. I'm not a fan of Lindsey Graham. I would be thrilled if he were voted out of office. Trump continues to support him. I think because, practically speaking, most of what Graham is for helps Trump's agenda, which leads to the Thomas Massie thing. So I think I mentioned some of this before, but I want to come back to it at least this much, because they're at battle in a sense, right? You saw maybe that Trump put out an ad, or at least somebody did on his behalf, put out an ad against Massie. He's the representative from Kentucky, and because he's going to vote no, Massie's going to vote no on the big beautiful bill, and Trump is calling him a grandstander and said he would try to primary him, and so he's already raising ads to try to influence Massie. So here's my conflict over this. In general, I like Thomas Massie. He has stood for the Constitution. His principles are solid, and as far as I can tell, he has always voted consistent with his principles. And I would put Rand Paul in the same category. I like Rand Paul. I like usually what he says and what he votes for. Was it with you all last week or the week before that I talked about these guys a little bit and their principles? Because I've had this conversation a few times and I'm trying to remember if I had it with you all. So here's what I see. So Trump is, he's dropping the political B2 on Thomas Massie now and trying to influence him. And then there was the brouhaha a couple weeks ago about Rand Paul, that he was he was uninvited to the White House banquet or something, and then Trump comes back, no, of course he's invited, come on in, and gives me a chance to persuade you. So here's what I see Trump doing with Massie, because just a couple years ago he gave a raving endorsement of Thomas Massie, and now he's against him. Trump is worried about today, and right now his goal is the big beautiful bill. Right, last week it was Iran. And he's very focused on the big things. And I appreciate the fact that he's a delegator. He has delegated the FBI to Patel and the DOJ to Bondi. And he's not a micromanager by any stretch of the imagination that I see. And he focuses on the big things that he's after. And right now he is pouring himself into this big, beautiful bill, which he's convinced will be the catapult to so many of the things that he campaigned on and he wants to do. So right now, Massie is in the way. And he's trying to persuade Massie, and he's trying to build political pressure to force Massie to maybe loosen up a little bit his principles and vote for this thing, even if he doesn't love everything about it. Here's what I could see happening. If the big beautiful bill passes and Massie doesn't oppose other big things down the road, I could see Trump turning around and supporting him again. Now that seems fickle, and certainly people are going to call him fickle. I don't think he's fickle. I think he's focused on the task at hand as he sees it. Now, I'm not saying that he's right about this. I'm just saying this is how I read it. And this has been his MO. And right now he's convinced this bill has to pass to accomplish what he wants to get done. And so the past principles of Rand Paul and Thomas Massie are not important to Trump right now. And here's where I would agree with Trump. So, and I think this is a matter of wisdom. That's the category I'm putting this in. Okay, wisdom. Congress, it seems to me, in many places has left the Constitution. And we are in debt that is going to bankrupt us as a nation if we continue on this path. I agree with that. So Rand Paul says, I can't vote to increase the debt, which currently the bill apparently does. I appreciate that by Rand Paul. And Thomas Massie, you may have seen, he's got his debt counter that he wears around on his lapel or something, and it just shows second by second how many millions and billions of dollars the U.S. debt is going up moment by moment. I appreciate that, and I appreciate their concern not to increase the debt and to hold to the Constitution. The problem is we are so far from the Constitution in so many ways that I'm persuaded, and I could be wrong, but I'm persuaded that Trump and what he's trying to accomplish is a path to more constitutionality. So that Massie and Paul can continue to hold their ground, but they're not accomplishing anything. The education objective of Trump, the tax objective, the deportation objective, the fair elections, free and fair elections objective, all of those things, in my opinion, will open the door for guys like Massie and Paul to have a bigger impact on future decisions. But as it is, where all the power and influence are is what enables corrupt Congress, rhinos, the Democrats, and previous presidential administrations to continue to lead us further and further away from the Constitution. So wisdom, as I see it, is Trump has earned my respect and my trust. I think he has the best in mind for the country, and I think his tactics have proven effective. And I think I said this recently. I know I had private conversations. I think the best thing that happened to America recently was Trump losing in 2020, even though maybe we'll find out he didn't and it was all rigged. But it gave him 4 years out of office to rethink everything and strategically, and he's come back with a great plan to accomplish his purposes. I'm convinced, and we'll see if I'm proven right over time, but I'm convinced Trump is on the right path. And if he is allowed to move forward with his agenda, we will raise the next generation of Americans who care about the Constitution, that rhinos and others who really don't care about the Constitution, but who are just pursuing Congress for selfish motives and to get rich, and all the NGOs and all that, that they will have a harder time being elected. I think we will find that the nation is not nearly as liberal as it appears. California could be in play, for instance, if we do that. Then guys like Massie and Paul, I want their voice to be louder. But somebody's got to come in and basically blow it all up before we can rebuild. That's how I see it. Now, so I'm not asking if I've persuaded you to my position. Do you at least understand my position? Do you see how I'm trying to hold in tension here the principle that by and large I agree with Paul and Massie, but holding to those principles by just a few congressmen have accomplished nothing, and I don't think they will without destroying these other influences that are taking us the wrong direction. So that's how I see it. So I'm agreeing with both Massie and Trump. I want Trump to win this battle, which I think will allow guys like Massie and Paul to win the war. We'll see. I could be wrong. We'll see how it all plays out. Dale says, I don't see Iran changing course without a change of leadership. Yeah, they may be forced into a change of leadership if they are out of money, and they were pretty much abandoned by their friends. And what Trump is doing with Russia and China and others in the Middle East economically could put the squeeze on Iran where they are forced to make some changes, which is better than America going in and changing them, I think. Alfred says, Patel is a disappointment so far. Yeah, and I understand that sentiment. I'm willing to give him and Bondi whatever time it takes to do it right. I'm hopeful that they both have the right goals in mind and the right way to get there. Now we'll see. Again, time will tell. But the kinds of things that I hope they are working toward mustn't be rushed, it seems to me. Now we'll see. We'll see. Tony says, Massie is principled. I agree. Tony says, Congress was designed not to easily pass things. It's doing its job. Yeah, it sure seems to me like it's being controlled. All the stuff that Doge has uncovered and all the money and the lobbyists and the kickbacks and all that, we've gone past. I don't think it's working as designed because of all of that corruption. That's how I see it. Kathy says, I understand it and agree wholeheartedly without needing persuading. Yeah, cool. Steven says, I'm tracking and been there with you for a while. Cool. Albert says, I have to admire your optimism. I just see our financial situation improving. It's a house of cards. I don't see. You don't see our financial situation improving? Tell me more about that, Alfred. What do you mean? Ron says, our leader promised $1 billion to Ukraine to fight Russia. Yeah, sorry, brother, up there in Canada, some things may have to get a whole lot worse before they get better. I think they will get better, but all right. Well, I don't see Daniel on here, so we'll save his question for another time. So here's getting to my optimism, and here's why, and this is Alfred, why. So if I have persuaded you, and I may not have, and that's fine, but as I see it, these tribulation passages that we've looked at, the apostasy and the man of lawlessness and the delusion and all of the evil things in the New Testament, not all of them, but these parousia coming passages, we'll sum it all up in the tribulation. The prevailing Christian view seems to be, and this would be true of dispensationalism and so-called amillennialism and historic premillennialism, all of those views look for basically growing evil, a time of tribulation, not 7 years, but just ongoing, before Christ comes back and then takes us into either the millennial kingdom, which is going to be wonderful, or the new heavens, new earth, which is going to be wonderful, that kind of thing. But this life and the world is getting progressively worse. Well, I see all of that taking place in the first century, mostly centered on Jerusalem, but with some on the church throughout as the beast, the Roman Empire persecutes and so on. But as Ron over on Facebook has already mentioned, in Daniel 2, we have the 4 kingdoms, the fourth one being Rome. And during that time, the God of heaven sends his Messiah and starts building the kingdom of God on earth and in heaven. And that kingdom is going to expand and grow and conquer. Jesus inherits the nations as his inheritance. He's going to crush his enemies, rule with a rod of iron. And as Isaiah 9 says, there will be no end to the increase of his government or of peace. And as Isaiah 2 says, in the last days, which I don't know if Darren's with us today, but we talked about that, right? In the last days, the mountain of the Lord shall be manifest, and the house of God shall be on the tops of the mountains and shall be raised above the hills, and all the nations shall come to it. Whereas in the Hebrew it says, all the nations shall stream to it, which I've talked about in our Isaiah series. How interesting that is. The nations stream uphill like a river flowing uphill, which is contrary to nature, right? To gravity and so on. So all of these kinds of passages, as I understand them, mean the nations are going to come to belief and worship of Jesus Christ. And therefore, peace and prosperity will grow across the world. I do not see the world getting progressively worse, but progressively better. Now, I use the word progressively on purpose. It's not going to happen quickly, but it is happening, in my view and my understanding of Scripture and what I see. So if I'm correct in that, then the future looks bright as the nations stream to Zion. We should expect the U.S. to grow more and more faithful to Christ, and Canada, Ron, and the Middle East even. Again, maybe not in our lifetime. Maybe, but maybe not. I don't know. But over time, we should see that. If that's true, if you're with me on this, we have to understand the implications for us. We have to lead. We have to lead in righteousness and peace, obedience, joy, unity, all of these things. This is why I spend Fridays often talking about family, right? The idea of the family is a mess in so many parts of the world. Well, those of us who understand why and how God designed the family, we have to lead out in this. So, fathers, you've got to raise your children to know and to obey the Lord Jesus, to care about righteousness. That's why we talk about family stuff, and you can't delegate that to the state or the church. That's the command. Fathers, raise your children. Children are to obey their fathers, their parents. Husbands, you are to love your wives. Wives, you're to submit to your husbands. Respect him. Husbands, you're to know your wife and to live with her as a co-heir of eternal life, right? All these things, we have to show the world what a good family looks like, what a Christ-honoring family looks like, because they don't know. And over time, if Christians do this, families will get stronger and better. You've seen all the stats, I'm sure, recently of the birth rate, how it continues to decline. Well, we as Christians, we need to get married. We need to have lots of kids, and we need to show the world and teach them how to do this and raise up the next generation to do this well. This is one of the reasons I continue to push against the idea that church is a meeting or a meeting place. If we think Christianity is about something you do in a building on Sunday morning for an hour or so, and then, Monday through Saturday is having your quiet time on your own and some kind of a sentimental experience. If that's what we think Christianity is, we're almost useless to impact the world. I mean, we're obviously also biblically wrong because the Bible doesn't know anything about those things. But Christianity, worship, is not a meeting. Nowhere, I say this all the time, right? Nowhere in the New Testament is worship, the word worship, tied to singing or sermons or sacraments or gathering. No, worship is presenting your bodies as a living sacrifice, not be conformed to this world or age, but transformed by the renewing of your mind and living life in obedience to Christ, which means husband, love your wife. Wife, submit to your husband. Children, obey your parents. Fathers, raise your children. Elders, shepherd the flock. Be examples to the flock of these things. Get a job. Everybody, get a job. Work hard with your hands. Right? We saw that in Thessalonians. Work hard with your hands so you have something to give. Don't steal. Work. Grow your wealth. Increase your wealth so you're not lacking and you're not dependent on others. Love one another. All these things. That's Christianity. And we need to be setting the standard, leading the way, showing the world what it means to bow the knee to Jesus Christ. And these are very practical things. But if we reduce Christianity to that event on Sunday morning, then we don't have the incentive to go change the world in these very practical ways. And if we have the theological perspective, the eschatological perspective, that things are getting worse and worse and worse, and we lose down here, as John MacArthur says all the time, and we're pessimists, and to use the dispensational phrase, to really care about these other things, about the future generations, is polishing brass on a sinking ship, because Jesus is coming back any minute. We're not useful for the kingdom if we have those perspectives. We need to be useful for the kingdom. Family, work, love, neighborhoods, productivity, right? The original command to humans: reproduce, fill the earth, and subdue it. Be productive. Take charge of this earth, civilization and technological advance, and on and on and on and on. That's what we are to be doing. And we're going to have success in it. And leading the world in love and unity. Love for one another. Loving your neighbor, loving your enemies. Striving for unity. This is what it's going to look like. Peace and prosperity. That's what it looks like. All of these things. And if the nations are streaming to Zion, and King Jesus is crushing those who oppose him, those are his enemies, right? And he's extending his kingdom to fill the earth, what it's going to look like is people loving one another, being productive, growing their wealth, caring for others, mourning with those who mourn, rejoicing with those who rejoice, family units that are solid and strong and growing and thriving, all of those things. And you can move forward in all of those things right now. And we must. We must. That's what it means to be a Christian. Right? Yes, Jesus died for my sins. Yes, he rose back to life. Yes, he ascended to the right hand of the Father. Yes, he conquered Jerusalem in 70 AD, judged them for their wickedness. He established his kingdom, and now he's been building it ever since. And that kingdom is very practical. What does he say in the Lord's Prayer? Thy kingdom come. What's the next phrase? Thy will be done, where? On earth. That's what the kingdom on earth looks like, his will being done. Well, what is his will? Sanctification, righteousness, obedience, love, husbands, wives, children, productivity, working hard with our hands, growing our wealth, all those things. That's the kingdom. Don't listen to those voices that tell you that that's all worldly and sinful. It's not. That's the kingdom. And if you're faithful, then you will graduate to the heavenly kingdom, which is a different thing, as we saw. We Christians need to lead the world and show them what this is all about. All right. There's some things coming in here. Aaron says, DGE millennialism equal optimism. Yes, I call it optimistic, optimillennialism. Daniel is here. Okay, we'll come back to that. They meant it for evil, but God meant it for good, so Christ is king. Sorry, is that back to the war? I didn't see where that came in. Bingham says, being part of a Christ-honoring marriage is one of the biggest blessings we can experience. Indeed. Albert says, Musk said every family should have at least 3 kids. Yeah, unfortunately, he didn't just say family, did he? I mean, I saw someone giving him credit for doing his part. How many kids does he have? Don't do it the way he does it. I'm not sure that's going to be a net gain for the world, because some of those kids are going to turn out a mess, I think. Aaron says, I think men would stop avoiding church so much if the churches taught this principle of worship. It's purposeful rather than emotional. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Mo says, would all those things be considered works that we are to do for the kingdom? Yes. I mean, all those things are, Jesus is king. I would say so, Mo, except because of all the controversy over the word works, I don't know if that's worth it. Jesus is king, right? Well, what do kings do? They rule a kingdom. And what do these citizens and servants of that kingdom do? They obey the king by doing what he tells them to do. And all of these things are the things that King Jesus tells us to do. So, yes, those are works, but don't put that in a theological debate of faith and works and all that. And I don't know if you're doing that. I'm just saying that tends to be where people go. We are to obey King Jesus, and these are all the things he wants us to do, and they're good, and they're for our benefit, and they're pleasurable. Right. All right. So anyway, that's why we talk about these things on Friday, whether it's good thinking or looking at politics, or we're talking about building wealth, or getting lean and strong, because you have one body, and that body needs to be as capable as possible to produce things, to live this life we've been given. All of those things work toward being good kingdom citizens and enjoying and experiencing all that he has for us. All right. Yeah, produce fruit. That's a good way to put it. Daniel says Rome teaches that is to represent the blood. Yeah, exactly. Stephen says that God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. Yeah, very good. All right, so I did tell Daniel I'd do this. So let me just quickly look at his question, which is a different topic. Where did you put it? We're discussing with atheists about the gospel. When should we walk away or even engage with them? So again, I think that that I would want to dive in a little bit more to your specific situation. I would say this is true with atheists or anybody else. As long as it seems profitable and there's a willingness to engage, then I'm willing to engage. When it becomes clear that they are not interested in truly having a discussion and they're unwilling to consider they could be wrong, I will tell them, if whoever I'm debating with, I will say, look, I could be wrong about this. I want to give you a chance to show me, reason with me and convince me I'm wrong. And I will ask the same of you. So I don't know if it matters whether it's an atheist or not. I'm just not going to spend my time with someone who shows no interest in having a genuine discussion. That it doesn't mean they agree with me, and certainly we can get animated in our interaction, and still you can perceive that they are pushing back, fighting back, but they are willing to hear you out. If they're not willing to hear you out, then why continue to have the conversation? So I'm sure there's more to it, but that's my general rule of thumb. I will debate, or not debate. I will discuss anything with anyone so long as it's truly a pursuit of truth. And again, that does not mean we're going to agree. But anyway, so I don't want to just repeat myself. So that's a short answer. All right, folks, we're going to leave it there. Have a great weekend. We will come back on a Monday and pick up in 2 Thessalonians. Grace and peace to you all.